Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 3, Drunk in Wild Songs. Chapter 232, Spring Flood. If I were Hassan, Xiao Qi squatted down and drew a simple map on the sand, I'd attack Duan province. Shenzhequan severed Amuer's supply route in Duan province, and Hassan's military provision could only be apportioned to the 6 tribes in the desert. Amuer allowed Hassan to marry Duoerlan at the beginning of this year precisely because he needed the Hulu tribe to supply food to the front lines. Ever since the 6th month last year, the Biancha cavalry never got the opportunity to cross into Great Zhou to loot. This was the source of Hassan's anxiety. In that case, you have to think about it carefully. Lu Guangbai squatted down too and picked up a stone to press down on Xiao Qi's Duan province. As long as you launch a surprise attack on Duan province, Shenzhequan will mobilize Tan Taihu, who is on standby behind him to engage in a fierce battle with you in Duan province. Then Shenzhequan will issue a deployment order to the Bianjun Commandery and Shazan camp, and the reinforcements from both sides will trap you in Duan province, never to return. I can run. Xiao Qi's index finger circled around the stone. I have the fastest cavalry. The goal is not to seize back Duan province but to loot Duan province's granaries. I can even mount a surprise attack on the newly built riding stables in Mount Luo on the way back. The reinforcements on both sides won't be able to catch up. You forgot Commander-in-Chief Qi, Lu Guangbai said. When you leave the battle zone, Commander-in-Chief Qi will move upstream and take a detour to Getal to kick your ass. That's just what I want. Xiao Qi moved the stone to the Bianjun Commandery. If the Commander-in-Chief Qi takes a detour to Getal, then I'll give Qingsha tribe's territory to the Qiang tribe and let the Qiang tribe cut off Commander-in-Chief Qi's retreat route to trap her in Getal before crushing her in one fell swoop. Lu Guangbai blocked the stone with the back of his hand and said, since Commander-in-Chief Qi dares to penetrate deep into the enemy's territory with an isolated force, she must have reinforcements. She can transfer the Qiangjun Commandery garrison troops to the Bianjun Commandery and get the Qiangjun Commandery garrison troops to fight back when the Qiang tribe mobilizes their troops to obstruct their path. Besides, the Qiang tribe has yet to pledge allegiance to Amuer. They might not necessarily be willing to do it if you ask them to step out as shields to block the spears. They definitely will, Xiao Qi said. Qiang tribe's initial refusal to submit to Amuer was because they had the Qingsha tribe to serve as a wall before them to obstruct the Qidong garrison troops. But the Qingsha tribe has now been wiped out by Commander-in-Chief Qi, and the Qiang tribe can't hold their own against Commander-in-Chief Qi's next round of attacks. It's only by pledging allegiance that they can get reinforcements from Amuer. Lu Guangbai hesitated for a moment and put the stone back at Duan province. Okay. If Commander-in-Chief Qi doesn't move, then I'll guard Mount Luo beforehand. I will destroy the bridle path leading from Mount Luo to Duan province during the surprise attack, Xiao Qi said. Without the path, you will have to run in circles on Mount Luo and watch as my cavalry leaves? Lu Guangbai pushed the stone and said, you have to cross the river on your return journey. I will lie in ambush at the banks of the Hashi River. Even if you whittle down my military strength at the banks of the Hashi River, Xiao Qi raised his eyes, my purpose has already been achieved. Lu Guangbai touched the bridge of his nose with the pad of his finger and said with a bitter laugh, how ruthless. The Gobi Desert and the wilderness lay along the banks of the Hashi River, and the ambushes Lu Guangbai excelled in relied on the use of the terrains. He had no advantage at the Hashi River. The war chariot battle formation could withstand the attacks of the cavalry, but it could not pursue an advancing cavalry. Lu Guangbai would not be able to catch up to them. If Xiao Qi's speculation was right, then Hassan would not only be able to obtain supplies in this round of surprise attacks, but also set up a new obstruction for Qi Ziyan in the south, thereby relieving him of the pressure in the north. Xiao Qi stretched out his 5 fingers and covered the map with it. Hassan still has eyes in Chu capital. He can see the whole picture. Twilight closed in on all sides, and smoke from the kitchen rose within the campground. Lu Guangbai sat on the ground and held that piece of stone in his palm as he watched a hue of orange wash over the camp walls. Under what remained of the sunset glow, he said to Xiao Qiye, "You can't leave." With Hassan launching an onslaught of violent attacks at the battle zone, they were all tied down here with no spare time to be in two places attending to different matters at once. That means he's starting to run out of food. Xiao Qiye stared at the map between his fingers. If he can't contain us, he will let loose a portion of his elites in Duan province. Hassan was suppressing the main forces of the three battle zone camps. Only by wearing down the three camps' main forces to the point of exhaustion would he be able to let his elite forces mount a surprise attack on Duan province. By then, Libai would be too exhausted to respond to the attack, and the threat posed by the reinforcements would fall. That would be the most optimal opportunity for him. Lu Guangbai tossed the stone to Xiao Qiye and said, "This is an opportunity we can manipulate." This bout of surprise attack was no longer terrifying as long as they could see through Hassan's motives. Hassan could make a feint, but so could the Libai armored cavalry. Fighting wars of attrition was detrimental to both parties, but Xiao Qiye was more confident of success since he had Shenzhequan's supply of military provisions. To date, the only person who could really threaten Amuir in the war was Shenzhequan. His supply route was just like a cobweb that held the three territories in the east secured and unassailable. Drag it out till the end of the 6th month. Xiao Qiye caught the stone and placed it on the messily drawn map. "I'll lead the elites of Shair camp to Bayanjun Commandery. You and Shifu can put on a show of fatigue under Hassan's attacks. The weakening of his attacks will be the precursor to a sudden assault on Duan province, at which time I'll be waiting for him in Duan province." 3 months was just right. When Hassan dispatched his troops to launch a surprise attack, it would be the season when the granaries were in abundance. He would not miss this timing. The sky had already darkened by the time both men spoke to this point. Xiao Qiye stood up and whistled at the sky, and Meng flapped its wings and circled before landing back on Xiao Qiye's shoulder a short while later. Lu Guangbai patted the dust off his robe and walked side by side with Xiao Qiye towards the military tent. Chen Yang, who was waiting at the entrance, lifted the flap of the tent for them. As Xiao Qiye entered the tent, he whispered, "Master, the letters from his lordship and Gu Jin have both arrived." Xiao Qiye took the letters and stood at the entrance to read them. Lu Guangbai drank half a bowl of milk tea, and when he heard no movement from Xiao Qiye after a while, he looked back to see Xiao Qiye with a gloomy expression. ******. A few days later, Fu Man arrived at the courtyard of the Grand Secretariat office as per the summoned. Before entering, he changed out of his damp covering and bundled up his robe to stride in and pay his obeisances to Kong Qiu. Kong Qiu sat by the window and merely uttered a sound of acknowledgement as he gestured for Fu Man to get up. Fu Man straightened up in a restrained manner and stood waiting in attendance at the far end. His eyes swept around the black boots at the sides, more or less recognizing the court officials that were present. The spring plowing has just ended. Huai province bought a batch of grains from Bama province, and Zhang Qingshan sold it to him based on the conversion of grain price in Juexi. Liang Qiushan finished his report. A few of Kong Qiu's hairs had turned white during this period of time, although they were not obviously seen as they were concealed under his wuxia hat. He said, "Qidong is fighting a war now, so Qidong naturally has priority for the military funds. The 8 great training divisions' military expenses can be reduced as needed." Here it comes, Fu Man thought. If the Grand Secretariat wanted to continue investigating the accounts as they wanted, then they had to first pare down Han Cheng's power. That's what the Ministry of War intends. The Minister of War, Chen Zhen, tapped his smoking pipe twice. But Han Cheng refuses. He wants a memorial from the Grand Secretariat. What he wants is approval, doesn't he? Sen Yu said. The Dan City case has yet to conclude, and to avoid casting aspersions on herself, the Empress Dowager can't approve it. Since the Grand Secretariat has brought it up with him, it means that everyone is in agreement with it. But look at him, refusing to do it so brazenly. The Empress Dowager could barely fend for herself, so where would she still have her earlier authority to make approvals? The Hua clan of this city was on tenterhooks now. What was the heir apparent poisoned with? Everyone present knew it all too well. It was to preserve the last bit of the Empress Dowager's dignity that Kong Qiu tossed the heir apparent's case to Fu Man and let the inner court investigate. Han Cheng was still holding the post of the Jin Yiwei's commander. He meant to take the path Hua Saiqian once took, by relying on the 8 great training divisions to challenge the Grand Secretariat. Fu Man had been buttering his bread on both sides, waiting for just this moment. He could no longer remain on the noble clan's boat, but he could still jump onto the Grand Secretariat's ship. He had shown his face before Hai Lianji, and he had spent the longest time in the Grand Secretariat's office compound. The junior eunuch's address of Zuzong was not casually given, but because he really carried this weight amongst them. He kept such a tight grip on the heir apparent's case because he wanted to extricate himself clean and to make Feng Quan the scapegoat. Emperor Tiancheng favored Miro, and he incurred the displeasure of the Grand Secretariat when he made an exception to promote Feng Quan. Even the Chief Surveillance Bureau censured him. Later, when Emperor Tiancheng died in Miro's hands, it was only through Xue Xiaozuo's grace that Feng Quan could continue to drag out an ignoble existence. Fu Man did not dare to incur the wrath of Xue Xiaozuo, but he had come to discern that the heir apparent was the future master of Great Zhou. He had to kick out Feng Quan before he could get a spot for himself beside the heir apparent. He was counting on the heir apparent for his future decades of wealth and glory to come. As for Han Cheng and Kong Qiu, Fu Man did not make much of them. Consider about Pan Rugui. Pan Rugui could assemble the Pan faction and sit on equal footing with Hua Saiqian exactly because he had the trust of Emperor Guangcheng at that time. It was no easy feat being a eunuch, having to be commanded around like a dog. However, if one found the right master, and then he would be a dog that lorded it over the masses, a dog that everyone had to deferentially address as Zuzong on sight. Fu Man was just thinking about this when he suddenly sensed Kong Qiu looking at him. He immediately stepped forward to bow, a complete about-face from his attitude in front of Han Cheng as he spoke with deference. This humble slave has traced what the Grand Secretary has told me to investigate. The seasonal vegetables consumed by the heir apparent that day all came from our garden service. Isn't that specially meant for the palace? Kong Qiu asked. Who is the eunuch in charge? It's someone called Yinzu. Fu Man continued. This humble slave has carefully interrogated all the people serving in the heir apparent's palace. None of them have anything to do with the garden service. The rules in the palace are strict, and they do not normally cross paths. Something was wrong with the seasonal vegetables of the garden service, and yet it could pass through so many hands to be served before the heir apparent. This would not have been possible if the perpetrator wasn't capable. Kong Qiu was in charge of the Ministry of Justice, and his train of thought was clear and organized. Moreover, it is impossible to have such a clear grasp on the heir apparent's preferences without at least half a year of effort. Fu Man repeatedly made sounds of agreement and said, this humble slave did in fact find such a person. Kong Qiu locked eyes with Sen Yu. Who? Fu Man looked hesitant as he wavered for a moment before answering. It's Feng Quan. Feng Quan had once held the position of the seal-holding director in the Directorate of Ceremonies, and the garden service was under the jurisdiction of the seal-holding director. It also had ties to the Directorate for Palace Delicacies. He was not only the heir apparent's attendant but also the person the Empress Dowager wanted to protect back then. As compared to a general flatterer like Fu Man, who fawned on everyone he came across with, Feng Quan could not be erased of suspicion at all. Kong Qiu furrowed his brows. Isn't this person already dead? That's right, Fu Man answered softly, but he stayed by the heir apparent's side for over half a year. He looked different, so much that this humble slave did not recognize him when he was serving in attendance in Mingli Hall. Kong Qiu did not respond immediately. All of them had only just gone silent when they heard the announcement of Xue Xiaozuo's arrival from the entrance. Liang Qiushan was well aware of the art of preserving his life. The matters of the inner court concerned the heir apparent and were not affairs he could meddle in, so he took the opportunity to get to his feet and retreated outside just as Xue Xiaozuo entered. Xue Xiaozuo's wuxia hat was slightly damp from the rain. Even when he saw Fu Man standing in attendance at the side upon his entrance into the hall, he did not ask about it and bowed to Kong Qiu. Kong Qiu did not bring up Feng Quan and told Xue Xiaozuo to take his seat for discussions. ******. The Hashi River thawed and the warmth of spring in Duan province abruptly disappeared. Drizzle fell for several consecutive days, pelting the peach blossoms in the courtyard until they had all fallen to cover the ground in a wet blanket of red. Shenzhequan had to discuss affairs with the advisors in the hall, and a sitting typically took several hours, so Fei Sheng added a charcoal brazier in the hall to dispel the cold. Yan Hiru has not shown up for so long and the businesses in He province are now in a mess. The merchants are making such a ruckus for fear that the deals they agreed on at the start of the year will fall through. They came to Cha province in the hope of discussing it over with your lordship. Yu Xiaozhe sat to the right of Kong Ling, near the charcoal brazier. He continued, there's also a need to make contact with the local yamen where the port is. We have to send someone there as soon as possible. Yao Wenyu seemed fine today. He said, the spring plowing has just ended, so the yamen in the various lands are all able to transfer manpower over. Then there's still Wang Xian, who is familiar with taxation in Cha province. There's no reason for your lordship to meet them in person. Stick to however the business was conducted in the past. Shenzhequan held the hand warmer between his palms. Wang Xian will suffice. Wang Xian used to be the secretary of the Ministry of Revenue who had contended with the various ministries before. Even Xiao Qiye had hit a brick wall when it came to him. There was no one more suitable than him to contend with the merchants. The Yan clan was the one greasing the prefectural prefect of Lu province's wheels. Ask them if they can find Yan Hiru or not. If not, Shenzhequan turned over the document and continued, hurry up and push out someone capable of taking on the matter. Qi Zuyan had yet to return to Kedong. The Yan clan had to complete the delivery of the remaining military provisions in the 4th month. No doubt anyone could ever find Yan Hiru again. At present, they were fighting through the roof at home. Shenzhequan dropped them a reminder to hand over the grains first before they split up the properties and break up the family. The matters today were more or less finished being discussed. Seeing that Jiao Tianya had still yet to return from the military drill grounds, he said, Yujing spoke about the details of the various prefectures' yamen, the situations of which are extremely complicated and cannot be lumped together in the same breath. Go back and ready a book for submission. Do it like how Xinwei does it, keep it brief and concise. Also, Shifu is in my courtyard, so Yuan Zhou shall have his meal together with me today. The advisors all stood up one after another and bowed to the prefectural lord before taking their leave. Ji Gang was under the eaves, watching Ding Tao train. Seeing the advisors coming out, he sent Ding Tao to instruct the kitchen to prepare the dishes. Remembering Fei Sheng's instruction, Ding Tao left Li Xiong in the courtyard to protect the prefectural lord, while he himself leaped down the steps and dashed off to deliver the message. Originally, Jiao Tianya was the one pushing Yao Wenyu in his wheelchair, but these days, Ji Gang had taken over the job. By the time Jiao Tianya returned, it was already dark. Ding Tao and Li Xiong stood guard at each side like a pair of door deities. He folded his arm and said with cool detachment to Jiao Tianya, if his lordship hasn't summoned you, you can't enter. Jiao Tianya pressed down Ding Tao's head and lifted the hanging screen to cast a glance into the main room. He already left. Ding Tao broke free. After the meal, his lordship asked Grandpa to push him back. You should have said so earlier. Jiao Tianya then asked, where's the prefectural lord? It's time for his lordship to take a break, Ding Tao answered. He's in the bath now. You didn't even get someone to close the windows in the hall. The wind is strong and cold at night. Jiao Tianya scared Ding Tao. If the prefectural lord felt cold, Lao Fei the 10th is going to nag at you all night when he returns later. Ding Tao had indeed forgotten about this, but he said, I remembered. I was just about to close them. Having said that, he turned and made his way into the hall to close the windows one at a time. As he withdrew out of the room, the back of his head bumped into something hard. He reacted quickly and covered his head, thinking Fei Shen was back. He looked back and was just about to speak when he shrank his neck back and shut up. Xiao Qi set down Longli blade, which was blocking Ding Tao, and inclined his head slightly to look for Shen Zequan. His face was damp, both from the rain and his sweat. His heavy armor on him was yet to be removed. His boots were all dirty, too. This was him riding all the way back in a rush after getting off the battlefield. End chapter. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 3, Drunk in Wild Songs. Chapter 233, To Love and to Fear. The rain was still falling when Shen Zequan returned to his room. Wearing a wide-sleeved robe but without his wooden clogs, he walked on the corridor leading to the bedchamber and heard a few crashes of muffled thunder. Damp wind pounced on his face through the newly cut window screen, while the staccato sound of rain dispelled the stifling sensation Shen Zequan was feeling from having sat for too long. Candlesticks stood by the sides of the corridor, making it brighter than the bedchamber itself. Shen Zequan stood there without moving, as if wanting to get some air. Shadows peeped through the bamboo blinds to lay exposed on the rug in the bedchamber, while the orange candlelight gave his silhouette a glow and rendered the skin slightly to the side of his neck a shade of vivid red. The 4th month was the season when crop seedlings sprouted and grew. If this bout of spring rain persisted, the Duan province fields near the Hashi River might end up inundated by the spring flood. Shen Zequan gave Kong Ling instructions regarding the Duan province dams last month, but he forgot to ask about it today. Reckoning that Fei Sheng should be back by now, Shen Zequan lifted the bamboo blinds and searched the bedchamber for the wooden clogs he had kicked off in preparation of summoning Fei Sheng over to question him. Xiao Qi, having long removed his armor, was lying sleepily on the bed with his head pillowed on both arms. Upon hearing movements, he turned over, and at the same time Lan Zhou picked up his wooden clogs. He pushed the lowered drapes aside and poked his head out. Caught off guard, Shen Zequan got a fright and dropped the wooden clogs. With his hands gripping the drapes, Xiao Qi asked, "Is what happened to the venerable master true?" Shen Zequan schooled his expression slightly and nodded. Seeing Shen Zequan's nod, Xiao Qi's heart, which had been on tenterhooks the entire way, plummeted completely into the ditch. He fell back onto the bedding and spread out his arms, looking as if he was about to die soon. Supporting himself against the edge of the bed, Shen Zequan looked at Xiao Qi and tentatively probed, "Did you run all the way back for this?" In order to find Master Yideng, Xiao Qi had scoured the entire Libei and watched on as Xiao Jiming wrote more than a dozen letters to the venerable master. But he did not even get to see him, and the man was now gone. After a long silence, he asked, "Where's Yan Hiru?" Shen Zequan made a brutal, slitting gesture along his neck. Xiao Qi fell silent for a moment with a frosty and grave expression. He suddenly turned over and buried his face into the pillow, refusing to show his face to Shen Zequan. If he had a tail, it would be drooping on the ground right now. "We'll head over to Juexi to look for physicians." Xiao Qi paused for a moment before continuing. "And there's still the Imperial Academy of Medicine in Chu capital." Shen Zequan did not say a word. His icy cold hand covered the side of Xiao Qi's neck and slid up to stroke his cheek. Xiao Qi grabbed hold of this hand and grasped it in his palm. The rain had doused his wrath, extinguishing it, leaving only disappointment and panic in its wake. He attempted to soothe his emotions, but this feeling was too complicated. "Xian," Shen Zequan called out to him. Xiao Qi said, "There are innumerable highly skilled physicians in the world living in seclusion or retirement. We'll find as many as there are available. As long as it's a physician." Shen Zequan suddenly pulled his hand out. The moment Xiao Qiye's palm turned up empty, Xiao Qiye made to sit up, but Shen Zequin pressed him back into place by his back. Ah yet! Shen Zequin propped himself up with his arms and lowered his head to say with a rare unyielding toughness, "You heard Kinkai Shifu's words before. Even with the venerable master, the illness may not necessarily be eradicated at its roots. But this body is still not in that terrible of a state." He slowed and relaxed his voice. "I've been taking my medicines on time and not once have I fallen sick this year." Xiao Qiye sprawled back, tensed up. Shen Zequin bumped his head against the back of Xiao Qiye's shoulder and said in a soft voice, "I won't leave you." The rain outside the room pitter-pattered down with finely woven beats. Xiao Qiye's chest cavity was all but a damp, clammy expanse. Shen Zequin stuck the side of his face to Xiao Qiye's tattoo through the fabric, where a scar lay. "You're lying to me." Xiao Qiye answered in the same soft voice. Xiao Qiye once thought that Xiao Fangxiu would not leave him, but their separation came so abruptly that he did not even get to bid his father farewell. There existed a hidden boundary line between man and man. Stride over that line, and that goes what one called parting by death. It was a whole other world no one could ever catch up with. "You gave this life to the Grand Mentor." Xiao Qiye's voice sounded oppressively heavy in the darkness. "You made a vow to him to kill his mortal enemies, and you stood alone before the noble clans without fear. You wanted me to leave back in Chu capital, and you hurt yourself in Cha province and Dun province." These were ticking time bombs left behind by those two incidents. They lay hidden in Xiao Qiye's heart, growing into unbearable proportions after Xiao Fangxiu left. Xiao Qiye only had to think about it to feel the fear after the fact. The source of his panic was not just Shen Zequin's health but also Shen Zequin himself. Xiao Qiye continued, "Lanzhou, you only have to harden your heart, and you'd be able to leave me behind." End chapter. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 3, Drunk in Wild Songs. Chapter 234, Nobody. Raindrops drummed against the door eaves, like an extension of Shen Zequin's mood. He could openly put on 100 of erotic and sensual displays before Xiao Qiye, but he found it hard to extend this frankness verbally to Xiao Qiye. He was the most eloquent orator in this world, and also the most inarticulate one. "I once gave this life to teacher, because there was no home to call mine in this world. Ah yeah, when I first stood before the gates of Chu capital, what I saw was the door to this life of mine. Stride inside and Duan province would no longer be my hometown. I knew my elder brother would vanish amongst my dreams, and I knew that no one in this world would ever forgive me." Shen Zequin had never gone into battle to fight against the enemies, nor had he sat in the imperial court a far distance away. He was an ordinary man who came face to face with the scimitars, and it was precisely because he was an ordinary man that the wails of the 6 prefectures lingered in his ears every night and the bloodbath in the sinkhole haunted his mind all the time. He kneeled in the snowstorm raging at the sinkhole and experienced a separation by death. Overnight, he became the enemy of the entire world. He had done nothing. But he was guilty, and his sin went by the name Shen Zequin. Shen Zequin watched the Biancha cavalry massacre Duan province. 40,000 men pressed down on his back, pinning him, and because he survived, he was forever held captive here. His struggles were insignificant. Those anguished cries of his were worth nothing before 40,000 corpses. Shen Zequin could not live on. He was, in that game of Wiki, a nobody. His pain was merely the puff of dust stirred up by its players' coughs. The moment he understood this, he lost what it meant to live. Ji Gang told him to keep living, but the heroes and the sycophants were still mutually tearing into each other. Keep living, and he would still be reduced to being a pawn someday. He would be dragging on his miserable existence merely to wait for death to claim him so that he could enter the next cycle of reincarnation. Back at the derelict Temple of Penitence, Qi Huilian raised his arms like a madman and shouted out for the Crown Prince, but in this world, the Crown Prince was no longer there. Were the legitimate bloodlines of the noble clans the only ones who could become the hands that hold the world in its control? Were the distinguished, noble-born prides of heaven the only ones worthy of possessing the power to stir up a storm? If that were the case, then all the innumerable ordinary folks in the world were the bones of the dead at the foot of the stairs. They were the subjugated ones meant to be trampled on, the dehumanized ones who suffered no pain, and the silenced ones who would not moan in anguish. They were nobodies. What did we do wrong? Qi Huilian cried out this phrase with inconsolable grief. What exactly did we do wrong? Shenzequan once lifted Xiao Qiye by the collar in a filthy alley, ripping open his mask of forbearance to question the same words with his voice breaking. You and I, what did we do wrong? If living was a sin, that meant heaven was holding him down by his head, intending for him to kneel in the dust and continue being a nobody. But Shenzequan met Qi Huilian. He watched as the Grand Mentor acted all demented, and listened as the lone crow let loose a plaintive wail. He was forced to the edge of the precipice. If he could not take out the courage to burn his bridges and fight to the death, then he would have to venture down this path that heaven preordained for him and kill himself once more. I am Qi Huilian of Yu province. I taught the crown prince. And I'll now teach you everything I have learned in my life, all right. What Shenzequan saw was a way to live. That was not only a path where he could kneel and gasp for breath, but also one where he could stand on his feet. Was victory assured just because one was born the descendant of a noble clan? The moment in which Qi Huilian went on his knees was when the paradigm shifted. He had torn down that wall much earlier than anyone else, earlier even than Shenzequan. Qi Huilian was the mentor of the emperor. He would only teach someone heading into that position. He reached out to Shenzequan not only because he was forced into a dead end, but also because this was the most insane of the Grand Mentor's schemes. If teacher imparts the classics to me, I'll kill your enemy for you. Shenzequan's hatred was scattered all over in Chu capital, those faint, blurry lights of untold numbers. It was Qi Huilian who converged them together with the word enmity. Unruffled is the orchid that grows on stone steps. Boundless is the horizon of the boat that crosses the sea of misery. Qi Huilian molded Shen Lanzhou into being, and he pushed a sharp Shenzequan back into his sheath with the aim of obliterating all the self-resentments that sustained Shenzequan and kept him hanging on to life. He wanted to set Shenzequan's path right, so that Shenzequan could see himself for who he truly was. Shuiziaozuo did not make the wrong move, he had simply been a bit too late. Qi Huilian had long already possessed his own heir apparent. Rainwater washed over the eaves. Shenzequan fell silent after he had said those words. He buried his face into Xiao Qiye's back, just like how Xiao Qiye had buried his face into the pillow. Shenzequan did not value his life, death was not at all scary. The hooves of all those vying for supremacy would not skirt around anyone. The promised lands of the world were all built upon the sharpest blades. If he died, then that only went to prove that Shenzequan failed in his quest to win the throne. He did not care. Would a hand that had been cut hurt? To Shenzequan, that was for him to find out, but he had to be cut first before he would know the answer. Qi Huilian did not manage to tether him. He was a blade without a hilt, one that would spill blood when held. No one else in the world other than himself could wield it. He strode away from everything else, all to achieve his aim of freedom. He was free when he killed Jilei. That made Qi Huilian realize for the first time that he had honed Shenzequan, but did not keep him fully sheathed. All Shenzequan learned was to deal a fatal blow without making so much as a sound. At that time, Shenzequan had his first taste of carnal pleasure when the battered, scarred host experienced the mirth of this body, that was the joy of being alive. He did not even realize it to be the prelude to the blade's return to its sheath. This squall from Libei swept away Shenzequan's nightmares. Xiao Qiye aggressively invaded Shenzequan's heart, dominating it. His strong, powerful arms blocked out all the din. In the deepest recesses of that quagmire, he gate-crashed his way in to catch a sniff of the fragrance of this gem. Vicious wolf. Teacher, return this life to me, ah yet. Shenzequan melted under this familiar scent and nuzzled his cheek against Xiao Qiye's back like a young cub that had come searching by following the scent. Ah yet. Xiao Qiye raised his hand to hold down Shenzequan and partially looked back to look him in the eye. Shenzequan opened his eyes, but there was no hint of mirth in those orbs. He moved Xiao Qiye's face closer and said, I am yours, even in death. And you are mine, too. He finally revealed the part of him that was sharp and ruthless. I will kill whoever wants to take you away from my side. Not even the king of hell was allowed to do so. At first, Shenzequan thought what he cherished was not life but Xiao Qiye. Gradually, he came to learn that a cut finger would hurt. However, that finger was not the one in pain but Xiao Qiye. Living was difficult, but in the process of living, he found even more reasons to live. He was the continuation of Jimu's life, of Qi Huilian's, of Zongbo's, and of all the nobodies in this volatile, tempestuous storm. They all existed and lived through him. I want to live to a ripe old age with you. Shenzequan planted a light kiss on Xiao Qiye's temple. In a place no one can reach. Xiao Qiye grabbed back Shenzequan's hand and turned around to take him into his arms. Then, cupping Shenzequan's cheeks, he closed in for a look. Tired from the journey? Shenzequan asked in an undertone. Nope. Xiao Qiye caressed Shenzequan's cheeks. I get through the days by thinking of you. End chapter. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 3, Drunk in Wild Songs. Chapter 235, Scoundrel. Xiao Qiye claimed not to be tired, but he still fell asleep under the murmurs and whispers. He had rather not have the time for rest after being swapped over to Sha'ir camp. It was only because Mount Luo was close to Duan province and that the bridle path ran smooth and unobstructed that he was able to rush back to sleep by Lanzhou's side. The rain intensified following several claps of spring thunder in the distance in the latter half of the night. As Xiao Qiye had something weighing on his mind, he woke up at the hour of yin. Shenzequan nuzzled against his temple, his breathing smooth and even as he slept soundly. Xiao Qiye listened to the sound of Lanzhou's breathing for a moment and felt inexplicably unable to simply resign himself to it. Half awake, Shenzequan uttered a hum. He liked to drag out his nasal sounds, making it hard to determine if he was in pain or feeling good each time. Xiao Qiye bid him, making him rock a little under his slightly urgent gasps. Don't bite. Shenzequan's still half asleep voice was slightly hoarse. He did not even open his eyes as he muttered indistinctly, It's all red now. It was indeed red. Shenzequan sobered up a little. Xiao Qiye was pinning him down, leaving him with nowhere to hide. It was as if he was being assaulted by the rain in the face of this force. There was no distance between them. Sweat spread to their chests, soaking the bedding until it was all damp. Xiao Qiye lowered his head and pressed his ear to Lanzhou's lips. Shenzequan was on the verge of breaking. He knew what Xiao Qiye wanted to hear in this clammy atmosphere. He spoke and breathed of love, his expressive eyes misted over as he shivered intermittently under the pounding of the waves. The downside about being in such synchronous tune with one another was that even a momentary separation would stir up a storm of passion that made them crave to be sated and to use sensual pleasure to make up for the gap in which they were apart. Xiao Qiye wanted. And still wanted more. And Shenzequan could not help himself and tilted his soaked neck back. This was a vulnerability that reared its head whenever he took Xiao Qiye in. Under the clamor of the rain beneath the eaves, a person in a straw rain cape approached. When a knock sounded from the door, Shenzequan raised a hand and made to clutch the hanging drapes of the bed, but Xiao Qiye grabbed his wrist in midair, holding it up as his strong, tanned arms secured Shenzequan in place. The person outside waited for a moment, then knocked on the door again. Shenzequan kept his voice down, It's not Fei. Xiao Qiye did not give a damn about who was at the door. His desire was raging. He wanted to dominate. Only he could see, bite and exert himself so hard that Lanzhou have to beg for mercy. Their breaths intermingled. Chew on air? It's already the second quarter of the hour of Mao. Chang Feng is heading down to the fields for a look. Are you going? If so, I'll prepare your overcoat for you. Drink some soup before you go over. Ji Gang had woken up early and even trained for a few rounds, after which he had come over with a bowl of soup in hand. Xiao Qi hissed in chagrin and shoved everything that was superfluous away to confine Lanzhou. He was way in too deep. Shen Zequan soundlessly mouthed, "Ah yeah, too." He turned his head to the side and buried his gasps in the bedding, hiding them deep under the roar of the rain. Xiao Qi was panting, too. Under those heavy gasps for breath, he let loose a dangerous laugh and admired the flush at the sides of Lanzhou's neck, all without so much as a pause. This is going to be the death of me. Xiao Qi thought diabolically. Possessing Shen Zequan in such a way gave him a climactic high. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Not hearing any movements, Ji Gang turned to ask Fei Sheng, "What time did the prefectural lord retire to bed last night?" "That's hard for me to say, man," Fei Sheng inwardly thought to himself. Holding an umbrella over Ji Gang's birdcage, he answered, "Quite late. Now that Mr. Yu has returned, he has to report on matters regarding the 6 prefectures yamen to the prefectural lord these few days. Didn't he take his leave early yesterday?" Ji Gang was worried that Shen Zequan would fall ill during this spring rain. Yujing has to stay until the rain stops this time. There is no rush to complete his assignments now. Exactly. Fei Sheng concurred. Shifu, you understand it best. Fei Sheng only wanted to send Shifu out of the courtyard as soon as possible. Second master was still inside, and if they were to cross paths later, wouldn't the game be over? He lifted Ji Gang's birdcage and said, "Shifu, this bird looks so listless. Could it be freezing from the cold? It gets sleepy after a meal. This bird is just the same as Ding Tao's sparrow." Ji Gang grew increasingly worried after not hearing an answer from Shen Zequan for so long. There's no one inside to attend to him either. How about I send you to the side hall for a seat? We'll drink a few cups of hot tea. Master should be awake in a while. Ji Gang lifted the birdcage back. As Fei Sheng took over the soup, Ji Gang placed a hand behind his back and said, "I can't sit still, so I'll go over to Yuanzhou for a look. The medicine is still being decocted. When Chuan Air wakes up later, ask him if he's going out. It's raining so hard. I'll have to tag along." Fei Sheng voiced his acknowledgement of the request and bowed to send Ji Gang to the walkway. Seeing Ji Gang finally head out, he rushed back while lifting the hem of his robe and whispered close to the door, "Second master, it's already the third quarter of the hour of Mao. The advisors should arrive later during the hour of Chen." "Our lordship." The door swooshed open to both sides to reveal Xiao Qi with a loose robe draped over him. His neck was still flushed and glistening with sweat. How would Fei Sheng dare to look directly at him? He instantly stepped back and bowed. "Greetings to second master." In one smooth move, Xiao Qi took the hot handkerchief on standby at the side and said as he wiped the sweat from his neck, "It's only the hour of Mao and you're already here," prompting. "Your master usually sleeps late and he's a light sleeper. How can he withstand you tormenting him like this?" Fei Sheng responded, "Second master indeed thinks of everything." Xiao Qi tossed the handkerchief back into the tray. He was just about to say something when he saw Ji Gang, who had just left, return the same way. Ji Gang was already standing at the end of the walkway glaring over at them. Fei Sheng looked back and inwardly exclaimed, "Good heavens." Ji Gang took long strides over. On seeing Ji Gang's livid expression, Fei Sheng wanted to retreat, but second master is watching. So, he plucked up his courage and stepped forward bravely to stop Ji Gang. With an apologetic smile, he said, "Did Shifu leave something behind? Just send someone over. Why make a special point of walking all the way back? It's raining so heavily." Unable to get around Fei Sheng, Ji Gang grabbed Fei Sheng by the front of his clothes and forcibly lifted Fei Sheng, who was a head taller than him, over to the side. Xiao Qiye called out, "Shifu! I'm not your Shifu!" Ji Gang hollered. Both his hands were trembling. Seeing Xiao Qiye also wantonly dressed, he hastily took half a step back and pointed at him, sputtering, "Ho, how dare you? How dare you?" He had already sensed something amiss the last time Xiao Qiye asked to be whipped as punishment, but he did not dare to think of Shen Zequan along those lines, so he tried every means possible to comfort himself. He never expected he would still get slapped with the truth right in the face. That was Shen Zequan. With his back all drenched from the rain, Ji Gang found it preposterous and felt incensed at the same time. His ears buzzed, as if he had really been slapped in the face. Unable to remain steady on his feet, he stood another step back. Fei Sheng reached out to support Ji Gang, but Ji Gang flung his hand away and bellowed, "You know? Were you in the know about it?" Fei Sheng forced a smile. Ji Gang hurled the bird cage down on the ground, and the bird flapped around in alarm as its cage took a few tumbles and rolled to the bottom of the steps. His hands were shaking badly. He still had his strength about him, and a strong wind pounced as he threw out the fist and struck Xiao Qiye with such force that the taste of blood saturated Xiao Qiye's mouth. Fei Sheng had already lunged over to grab hold of Ji Gang's arm. "Shifu, Shifu, please be appeased." The rain pitter-pattered down in torrents. Xiao Qiye pressed the tip of his tongue against the taste of blood and said, "I'm willing to take the blows if Shifu wants to hit me, and I'm willing to kneel too if Shifu wants me to do so. But if Shifu is still thinking of finding a marriage match for Lanzhou, then it's not possible." Ji Gang had been dropping hints this year, not daring to push Shen Zequan too much, but he had been on tenterhooks, so he had scouted out several maidens in Tse province and mentioned it to Shen Zequan in his letters. Shen Zequan did not agree to any of them and merely said that he had someone that he cared for by his side. But Ji Gang had never seen this person ever since he arrived in Duan province, and he had been wondering if Shen Zequan had been merely appeasing him. How could he have expected there to be such a person? "You scoundrel!" Ji Gang broke his arm free and bellowed agitatedly, "I'm going to beat you scoundrel to death." End chapter. Notes. 1 hour of yin is 3 to 5 a.m. 2 hour of mao is 5 to 7 a.m. 3 hour of chen is 7 to 9 a.m.